Welcome to the Honest Business Podcast, the Honest CEO's Guest Series Special Edition. In this series, we are going to be talking to some incredible female founders about their journey, what really goes on behind the scenes, how much balance they have, what makes their business joyful, and ultimately what keeps them going. So feel free to tune in and we will see you each week. Welcome back to the Honest Business Podcast and our Guest CEO series. Today we've got a fantastic conversation with the amazing Cat Byrne, who is a designer turned creative business mentor and strategist who's spent the last decade as the creative director of her own studio, Gatto, designing not just brands and websites, but also her strategies and rules to take what success looks like in a creative business and turn it on its head. So after the early years of burnout and overworking, whilst also being told that this is just how business is, she knew something really had to change. And so she's rebuilt everything with peace, confidence, sustainability at the center of things, and building her design studio to a six-figure business that is booked up peacefully 6 months in advance and showing that peace and success do not have to be opposites. After years of seeing creative business owners be conditioned to believe that business means sacrifice, she wanted to share her strategies and guidance to show what is possible to be booked up peacefully, aiming for a success and a lifestyle that works perfectly for any creative. And through her group program, Booked Not Busy, she has helped 100 plus creatives to fill a spacious calendar with dreamy clients whilst reaching their income goals. Now, Kat's work is all about creating space. She is all about flexibility, better clients, more ease, confident decisions, and building a business that actually supports the life you want. And the reason I was so excited to have Kat on the podcast is she's very passionate about proving that creative businesses don't have to be stressful to be successful. She's really an advocate that creative businesses can make a lot of money. They can make the money that anybody wants to make in them, and that your peaceful path might just be the one that gets you closer to success that you truly crave. I mean, that's quite a powerful bio, but I know that this conversation today is going to really be an eye-opener for a lot of people to see how joyous and how spacious your business truly can be. So, Kat, welcome to the Honest Business Podcast.
Hello. Hi, May. Thank you for having me.
How are you today?
Yeah, really good, thank you.
Good. Have you had a peaceful morning?
Always. That's what we strive for. I am without my little boy today, so I've had a much more peaceful morning than usual. So, yes, thank you.
I love that. Oh, fantastic. So, what is the one thing that you wish all business owners knew?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's sort of covered in a lot of the work I do, but I do really think that we take for granted, like being very stressed and being very overworked in business. And I really, really wish people could know that not only your business doesn't have to be stressful, it doesn't have to be overwhelming and chaotic, but it can also be like whatever it is that you want it to look like. And I think that's probably the main thing that I love to share throughout all of the work that I do is just that whatever your business, whatever you think you want your business to look like, that is a potential reality.
I love that. And we are both real advocates of running spacious businesses, having freedom. Like, we're so passionate about this. Can you just set the scene for people around what your business looks like or your day-to-day and what that means for you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, my businesses look very different. Like, as you said, I've been running my business for over a decade now. And it's obviously in the past 4 years been a mom, so it's looked very different in that way. But also, like, motherhood changes month by month, year by year, etc. So it's looked very different over the past few years. But generally, I work sort of 2 to 3 days a week. I can't do like a full, because I'm doing a lot of creative work. Like, full 8-hour days are quite intense. So in that time, it's kind of like half days or blocks of work here and there. No work in the evenings, no work at the weekend. I mean, saying that, sat here recording this, but I just like to keep work and life very, very separate. So outside of my work life, I'm looking after my little boy. We have a lot of time together before he starts school. I spend a lot of time with my friends. I've got loads of hobbies that I'm working on endlessly. And yeah, that's kind of how it looks. I keep my days very peaceful. Like, I don't want to be in the position where I'm going into work and that's like a heightened stress situation, and then the rest is like a almost like come down, which is definitely where I've been in the past. So yeah, very spacious. I run my design business in sort of like 1 day a week, and then I work on my group programs and my work as a mentor and strategist with the other kind of like 1 to 2 days, depending on how that looks. So yeah, very calm. All the work I do, I love. There is nothing that I work on that I sit down and think, oh God, I'm like absolutely dreading this. Obviously, there's occasional things that are like things to deal with. But yeah, I love running my business, and I do it in a way that means I can also really love my life as well.
Yeah. And how long have you ran it in this way? Because I think some people might now think, well, you're 10 years in, great, good for you.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the case, is it?
No, and also, like, I think a lot of people, like I said, I've became a mum about 4 years ago, and that's the sort of catalyst to a lot of people to shift the way you work. But I was actually trying to actively work on working less before I became a mum, with absolutely no goal whatsoever, aside from the fact I just didn't want to be working all the time. So I think like the early stages were very much, as you said, kind of, I was very burnt out. I was working a lot. I was working in the way that I kind of saw other people work, and just thought, well, this is what you've got to do, I guess. If you're running a business, you've got to work 7 days a week. You've got to work 12-hour days. And I think I reached a point maybe 3 years in where I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to continue to do this in this way. So at that point, I started to try to switch, like working a little bit less, trying to take a bit off my plate, working on things like pricing, like other strategies that really help with that sort of thing. And I think it probably took me from that point, maybe 2 years, to get to a point where I was really happy with the way I was working. But that was because I'd never done it before. I didn't know what I was doing. It was a lot of like trial and error. And yeah, so I had about a year where I was like working this sort of 2-3 day work week with, not much to do. I was like filling my time with, like I said, seeing my friends and, having hobbies and those sorts of things. And then got pregnant and was like, okay, well, I've got more to do with, with my free time now. But yeah, it was always my goal. I grew up with parents who were working very, very hard and very long hours out of necessity. And I could see that if I'm creating something for myself, I can build it differently, and I can create something that doesn't need to be me putting all of my time and all of my energy into work. So yeah, I just wanted to make it happen, and that's what I did.
Yeah, and the layers to this is phenomenal, I think. Like, I think if listeners are kind of, their heads might be going in so many different directions of mindset things, or like, how can you possibly do that? And also practicality pieces. And like, there's such a huge holistic pieces, which I guess is why you do what you do with your work, because actually this is a real kind of chapter that people embark on and a decision that people get to make. How did that start for you in terms of, I know you touched on your parents, but there's a lot of courage. Like, you're very much a visionary to be able to have seen that, especially when you said you didn't see a lot of people doing that. So how did you manage to lead with that?
Oh yeah, that's such a good question. I think it's so interesting because I always say, like, I'm not or have never been in the past a very like naturally confident person. But what I've always had is like a belief in myself and what I can achieve. And that does sort of stretch beyond work and beyond, like, I don't know, academics and stuff. It was always just thinking, if I can think of something that could be a reality, the least I can do is try to make it happen. Like, it's, and if anyone can give it a go, me with the thought in my head going, oh, that's something I would love to do, I'm the person to make it happen, right? Like, that's always where I've been. So I guess, like, when I got to the point where I was overworking and I found work so exhausting, and thinking, okay, I'm like 25 and I'm going to have to work for potentially another like 40 years. I can't have it be like this for this long. Like, it's so draining. It's taken over my life. Like, I had other plans at the time. I knew I sort of wanted to have kids, or like wanted to do travel, whatever. So I think it was just like, this is a thought. This is something that I feel like I could do. Why not give it a go? The worst thing is I'm still doing a job that I love. And yeah, it's stressful and it's tough, but it's better than, the jobs that I'd had before that just like didn't work out for whatever reason. So yeah, I think it was just then trying to make it happen by testing out different pieces of like what that looked like how does that come together? Well, I can't work 3 days a week if I'm charging like, let's say, £1,000 for a website, less in the early days. So, okay, well, pricing's important. So that has to come into it. And then if my projects are really stressful because I'm not working with the right people, then that's creating a problem. That's meaning that those 2 to 3 days, even if they are cut down, are filled with like stress and problems. So I need to make sure I'm working with the right people. So how do I find, it was like all these little pieces that came together. And like I said, it took me 2 years because I was finding all these different threads and bringing them in together into this like one piece, this one strategy. And I think when I got to the point where I was like, okay, this is all really like working well together, that's when it was like, oh, it's happened now. Like all of a sudden I'm working less and I'm working with the people I love working with. I'm making the money I want to make, living the life that I want to live, which for me is, quite simple and a pared back, calm life. But I could see that if I wanted to do other things, if I wanted to go traveling, if I wanted, I don't know, to buy my dream house, like these are things that I felt then were possible as well.
Which is phenomenal. Like that shift is so huge. Can we go back to pricing?
Yeah.
Because that, I think, is one of these things that gets people very confused, conflicted. There's a lot of emotion to it. Yeah. And I one of the things about this guest series of this podcast is hopefully to show people different business models and them understanding what business model are you actually building, which I think is at the crux of what me and you do a lot of, like really helping people decide and understand and kind of fully buy into what is it you're building. And you, from what you've articulated beautifully, seem very clear of like, I knew that I wanted X, Y, and Z within a provision of something, and therefore pricing is something I had to get on board with in order for that to work. Like, as you said, if you didn't get on board with changing your pricing, it ain't ever going to work because you're just going to end up in that cycle. That's very easy for us to say for people when they're doing that. It's hard, isn't it? Even if you've been in business 5 years, 10 years, I think sometimes people think that pricing is like just an issue when you're starting out. But I really disagree with that because I think all of us can have kind of pricing worries and concerns, and that shift sometimes where you've got to make an elevation or you've got to tweak things can be really kind of worrying. So when it comes to your design projects, let's just say for an example, I know you do not charge £1,000 for a website anymore. How did you go on that process of getting comfortable?
Yeah, I mean, it is so important. Like, it's one of the most important pieces. And I think it is sometimes a shock to people to see how big of a deal the pricing is, because you look at other people, like what other people are charging, and assume that that's just, well, I'll just go a little bit below that, or there's not really any strategy to it. But I've gone from like the first website I worked on, I think I charged like £400, which at the time was like, oh my God, £400. But it was like a full WordPress like build out. It was very, very complicated. But what I was charging took like, I don't know, 3 months or something. I'm
just like, see you now thinking, oh my goodness.
Like looking at past me like, stop it.
Are you okay?
Yeah, exactly. And gone from that point to at the moment where a chat is like somewhere between 10 and 15,000 per project. And I think you can even see from the logistics of those numbers how charging £400 is very dramatic. It's a dramatic low for where I was at the time. But you can see how much space that can create, because you're essentially working on the same projects for these huge, like hugely different amounts. And one of them facilitates you to work on, I don't know, 4 or 5 projects a year. One of them you have to work on 1 or 2 projects a week to get to where you want to be in terms of making money. And it's not always about making more all the time, but it is about making as much money as you want and need to live the life that you want to live. That's where I think I don't personally believe you can have the space and the peace if you've got financial stresses behind you as well. So I think this really has to come into it. In terms of like the process, at the beginning, it was very, very, very gradual. And I think I needed to do it that way. But I don't recommend that now. Like, I don't
It's like
work with
£100
people
add-on
and go
each
like,
time.
just like, oh, maybe put it up for like £50. Like, that's honestly what I was doing. So I think I did one jump from the like 400 mark up to like 1800, which felt huge at the time. And from there, I did these sort of like periodical, like bigger jumps. The thing that was really important to me was intentionally, like on purpose, building my own confidence along the way with the work I was doing, being proud of what I was doing, and making sure that every time I worked on a project, I was sitting with, this has gone really well. I really love the work I've done. And like building that into the way I was working, I find like, I really don't think pricing worries will go away if we stay in the sort of like insecurity, which is really easy as a creative. I think if you're a creative person, you put a lot out onto the table. You're sharing like a piece of, it's almost like a piece of your soul. Like you come up with these ideas, you craft them, you build them together, and you end up with something that you're so proud of. But it's so easy to then go, oh, well, the client was a really good client this time, or, oh, I just had one really good idea. Like, you can kind of dismiss how great you are at what you do. And I made it kind of my goal to be as confident as possible with my work and in my business. And with that, it wasn't just about the work and it wasn't just about the pricing. I found it important, and this is where all the other threads come in, I also found it really important to have a really like slick and professional process, because that made the projects go smoother. It made my clients happier, and it made me more confident because things were going smoother behind the scenes. And again, like I said before, I was working with the right people. I was making sure that the people I worked with were really connected to the work I was doing and really liked my style instead of just coming to me for price. And again, that's where the pricing comes in, because it's like the people who were working with me were happy to pay higher prices because they wanted to work with me. So yeah, from the sort of like 1800, I think there was then a little bit of a tiptoeing up to the 2,000-3,000 mark. I think I then went up to like 5, and then I think it was like 2018 where I was like, do you know what? This work is, I could see what my clients were doing. I could see the amazing things that were being facilitated by the work we were doing together. And I just thought, I'm going to see if I can charge 10K for a project. And I did that.
Yeah.
It was kind of like at first just, I'll see if this is a possibility for me. And really, like, what is pricing other than, I know there's strategies to it and I teach strategies to it. And we talk about this a lot. But essentially, when you work for yourself, it is kind of,
it's a shot in the dark to some degree.
Yeah. And I say to all of my clients, like, you could charge £100, you could charge £25,000, and more. It's not really anything to do with the price. It's how confident you feel behind the price and finding the people who are going to pay that price as well. And I think that's what I found is I got to the point where I was at that like 5 creeping up sort of mark. And I thought, I think there's people here who are just as great to work with who have the budget to pay more. And I know the work is worth that. Yeah. I hate the like charge your worth thing, but
yeah, we're not a fan of that.
Yeah,
we're like, that doesn't exist.
What is my work? Like, I don't know. But I guess if you're gonna connect to that phrase again, that's where the confidence comes in, just feeling really good about your work. But yeah, so
this is mega. There's so much to dive into, even from what you just said. I'm like, whoa, we've got so much going. Because I think this has just summed up so perfectly this dichotomy that almost goes on between hearing people like us say, charge, we're not saying charge what you want, but essentially saying, you know, you can charge whatever you want. And then this other piece of like value and brand and experience. And it gets quite complicated for people because you're sort of like, well, hang on a minute. Am I just picking a number out of thin air or not? And as we both said, like, yes, there's loads of different pricing theories, pricing strategies. But again, coming back to your business model, if you are a kind of solopreneur or you've got a very small freelance team, they're often, it depends on the industry, but especially if you're like B2B, it becomes very difficult to price in a way. Well, there's no scorecard sheet that's saying you have to do X, Y, and Z thing. And hopefully we're showing you and saying, like, don't Google what is the average rate for whatever project, because you're going to get a figure that ain't going to help you. It's going to cause even more confusion.
Yes.
How do you approach this idea of, like, you said very clearly that you understood who was going to buy from you. And I think that's one of the secret weapons in all of this. If like you have got to, we can call it brand if we want to call it brand, we could call it position. It sits across so many different functionalities, but you kind of do, if you're going to go down a route of charging a rate that works for you and you're not going for volume, and maybe you're not building an agency where you're going to try and get, if we're talking about design, loads of projects through. How did you figure out where your position was, where your sort of brand almost was going to sit?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think as a designer, the work and the style was very important. And at a time when there actually weren't that many people around designing, I think it was really easy to go down a certain path of, I say not a lot of people designing, you would go to an agency. There weren't a lot of people who had like a solo design business, and the people who did, everyone had a very, very similar kind of like very minimal black and white kind of style. It was that kind of like early millennial times. And as you can see, like that's not really what what I do. But I went along with it at the beginning because I was like, well, this is what people want. And at that point, I then, decided to experiment with finding my own style and crafting the work that I could be really good at and I knew was within me to be kind of like my superpower as a creative. So that was really important, finding the piece that like, what is it that I do really well and how can I carve that space out for myself? I think then it's about, well, I know what I do really, really well. This is the thing that I'm the best at. Who needs that thing? Who's looking for colour? Who's looking for the personality? What types of brands, what types of people are in need of the thing that I am the best at? And it's kind of like this relationship between the two sides of the project, the kind of like collaboration. And I really believe like there's a kind of perfect match, creative to client kind of pair and relationship. And I think if you can figure out both of those sides, it's so much easier to find your space and attract people who come in at all levels of budgets. It's not about how do I, I get this question from my clients a lot. Well, how do I attract the people who are going to pay 10K? And it's not that question. The question is, how do you attract all the right people and attract, I'm going to say a big enough, but it's not in terms of like the thousands. It's just a big enough group of the right people so enough of them can go in at the right price. And that's where I find the kind of the relationship side of it, or the collaboration side, is so important. And also really staying true to how you position, like you said, your brand, your positioning, whatever that is, staying strong with where you are and making it all work together.
Yeah. Do you find that creatives find this really hard?
Yeah, 100%. And of course, I mean, I found it really
hard. I would say like
time.
everybody across the board struggles at all different points and iterations of their business. How do you help people understand what their value truly is? Because if we also, to play as devil's advocate, throw a flip of a coin type thing, some people are phenomenally talented, more so, let's just say, than other people, and that's fine. Everyone has their own niche and their way, and they, often people are trying to figure out. It's hard. Often we're on a journey of figuring out what is it that we're even that good at. But how do you help people understand? I don't want to say where they should place themselves, but I guess there is almost a time where, I imagine in your job, you sometimes have to have the trust more than they do to help them to see where it could be. Because I think often when we're so self-critical of ourselves, we might think it's absolutely rubbish, and you might be sat there going, oh my goodness, this person's skill set is phenomenal. Are you almost having to hone this value to help people sort of craft it in a way that's then, I was going to say commercialized, but that's maybe the wrong word, but in a way that then is sellable or is able for other people to be able to see that?
Yeah, the skill itself, like the creative skill that people come to me with, I kind of act as like none of my business almost. Like that's not my piece of the puzzle to work with. I think if you are at a position where you are starting your own business in something that you love doing and must believe that you're good enough to do, I'm yet to come across someone who I think this is not like a viable business. And I think it's important to give space to every type of creativity and every style, every experience that people come to their businesses with. And again, I still believe at whatever skill level, at whatever experience level, there is still a pocket of clients for everyone.
Totally. 1000%.
And I've seen people with, wildly different. I've worked with a lot of designers because that's what my background is. I've seen people with completely different styles and different levels of training. I'm myself a self-taught designer. And still, they can find their people. That kind of isn't my concern almost. I
think it is for other people, isn't it? That
Sure.
panic and that worry, and I think that pricing just connects so sort of. It's almost like suffocating for people. I think because they think I'm never going to get to charging $5,000 a project, or I can't charge $20,000 a project because of my skill set, or because of this, or because of that. And I guess you are phenomenal at helping people see the two aren't mutually exclusive.
Yeah, and it's a really big part of it as well. It has to be, because you can keep telling yourself, it's almost like a sort of self-sabotage thing, isn't it? It's like finding an excuse. Well, what about this? Well, what about this? And you get to the end of your list of what abouts, and it's like, okay, well, there's nothing left now. You've worked through all the what abouts. Let's just move with the strategy. Let's just put things into place and make it work. And I think that's the piece that is maybe the tough bit, is sitting with uncomfortable changes,
because people want to bow out, don't they?
They want to change things back. 100%. And you will, people tell themselves constantly, and I have had this conversation with myself, am I good enough to charge this? Am I good enough to work with these people? And eventually it is kind of an act of going, well, why not? I can keep telling myself I'm not good enough. I can keep doing this. And at the end of the day, it's just going to make things harder. It's just going to make me feel unhappier. And I guess it's going back to that thought of if I want to do something, I may as well do it. I may as well go all in. I may as well try my best at making it happen. I think if you can go in with that attitude, and this is kind of the conversations that I try to have with the people I work with, is finding the little bits of self-belief and finding it's a bit cliche, but find what's the why, and why are we doing this? What is it for? And using those things to carry you through the uncomfortable, I don't like this price, or I don't know if I'm going to find the right people, and pushing through it so you make it happen.
And I think that disconnect is what ruins businesses, kills businesses. And for people listening, what we're talking about there is leadership. I think for many creatives, you don't have to be creative to listen to this podcast, but if you are a creative listening to this, I think, a lot of creatives, leadership feels very foreign, or feels like, whoa, that's not something I want to get involved with. But I think you are a fantastic example of everything you just described there, of being your leadership is what got you to be where you are today. Because had you not backed yourself and had not gone for that thing of, well, we're going to do this anyway, even if the voice inside my head is really questioning it, how different your life today would be. You maybe potentially wouldn't have all of the freedom you have. And so for anyone listening, use that leadership, whatever that means to you. And I think there's a journey that you go on to figuring out what that looks like for you. But it's so powerful, because what Kat's describing there is you have honed kind of a leadership style that has really kind of catapulted you forward and sustained you, which I think is interesting. Have you got any thoughts around that?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that came up when you were saying that is, I think you make the biggest and boldest leadership decision when you decide to start a business. So why stop there?
Ooh,
I think clip it. I really do believe if you're making that step, you've already got all of the pieces that you need to get that business that you're starting to where you want it to be, because you are deciding that you're good enough to do this. You're deciding that you can make money from it. You're deciding that there are people who will work with you. So why leave that at the door? I think there's so much then to drag through the rest of your business. And I say drag because it can be
a drag at times.
But you're going into your business as the leader. Bring that confidence through and really believe in yourself through the difficult times, because there are difficult times, and I still have the difficult times in my business. I just feel so much more equipped to to deal with them, so they don't actually feel difficult to me anymore. Like I have to set boundaries with clients. I have, tricky situations. I have to give myself like pep talks quite often. But I got this far, so I can keep going.
Did you always see yourself as a leader?
No, God, no, never, never. Like if you would have met me at like school, I was such a like quiet person. Like I almost like overlooked and ignored by most people because I just shrunk into, other people or what, wherever I was put. I was very academic, so it was easy for me to just shrink into being academic. And then going into jobs, it was the same. I would like be the working very hard in the corner and doing my job very well, but like not quite speaking up or being a bold voice. And I think it took me building something that I felt so comfortable in my business to bring that out of me more.
Yeah, that's so powerful though, isn't it? Like that shift in how those little steps are just leading you.
And I think there's something in acknowledging there that if things don't feel right, they might not be built right. They might not be built for you. Like it's finding the space where you can be like your most, we talk about being uncomfortable. How can you make your business the most comfortable place?
And you are phenomenal at doing that. Can we talk more about what support systems you have in your life, in your business? You're smiling because I just know that this is such a great topic, but I know this is going to be helpful for people. What support, how have you designed your life and set it up? What do things look like for you?
Yeah, I do love this question. I do have support, but not in the way that I think, sometimes, and I'm not saying this is always the case, but I think sometimes we're trying to look for, oh, well, that's how they can do that thing,
Yeah,
like,
and it's an excuse almost, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, well, they've got, I don't know. I can't think of any examples, but, you're trying to think of that, like, oh, she can do that because of that thing. I have a very, like, normal setup. I have a very supportive husband. As I said, like, I'm a mom, and even, like, my little boy, I feel, is a support system, more, like, emotionally than anything else. I do have a great family. They live quite far away. I have kind of built into my life the supports that I need to keep me feeling great. Really good friends, like having really great relationships, almost like pulling things from the way I've built my business into my life. It makes it a little bit like, oh, okay.
No, tell us more people
to be around. But I'm making sure I'm surrounded by the right people in my life just as much as I'm making sure I'm surrounded by the right people in my business. It's people who I really connect with and really value. But then I build in support, like, again, becoming a mum, I was trying to build in childcare and making sure that was something that I could cover. I am the primary parent to my son, so I do take on a lot of the childcare myself. I have a lot of time on my own with my little boy.
And that was a choice that you wanted, right?
Yeah, and I mean, childcare is expensive. And it's one of those things that's tough to take on out of nowhere. Like all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's this additional. So it's something that I've built up. Like we started with like 1 day of nursery and then added on another one after a year and then the same again. Little boy's going to start school in September, so that's going to change things around as well. I have great people in my life surrounding me that allow the life that I'm building through my business to be as great as I want it to be. And I think that's the point, isn't it? It's not about who's supporting you, who's holding you up, who's making sure you can do all these things, because people do support me and I feel very supported by the people around me. But I also feel so motivated to live my life with these people, and that helps me not want to work, 50 hours a week.
And you're a fantastic example, I think, of someone who has done what you've done in the sense of being able to have so much balance, but you also don't have like a huge entourage of different support across different things. Like, as you said, you've got support, but you haven't, you don't have a nanny, for example. You don't have a massive team. You have really done this in a way that you kind of are at the forefront of it, aren't you? And you're very much in control of it, which I think is probably gratifying for a lot of people listening, because I do think sometimes, like, I'm quite open that I do have a lot of support and I have help in various different places, and that works for me. But I think that's very nice to hear. Actually, if you don't want to have all that, you don't have to.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's kind of what I was getting at. I think I am the leader in my life just as much as I am in my business. And I've said in the past, like, I'm very easily overwhelmed. I stress easily. Like, these are things that I've had to very intentionally build out of the way that I live on purpose. Like, I have to have the work and I have to have the life that keeps me as non-overwhelmed and stress-free as possible. And I have to be in control of that because I know myself what that looks like and where that comes from. I decided, like, when I found out I was going to be a mom, that I wanted to have the space for that to be the most stressful part of my life and the hardest thing that I was doing. And a lot of us don't have that space, like, not just running businesses, but in any job. You are a parent and then your work is another big stress in your life. And I just didn't want that to be the case.
And, like, Kat fully lives and breathes this. I feel like people listening might be like, oh, this sounds nice. Like, you are to the T on this, aren't you? Like, your whole life. Kat's never really panicked, stressed. She, like, you are phenomenal at how you embody this.
I could be stressed at any point in my life.
Sure.
There are things, just like anyone else, I could choose to, and I'm not saying that stress is a choice at all. I think there are lots of things that are stressful. I, at any point, can pick out 4 or 5 different things that I could be overwhelmed and stressed by. But I don't think that's helpful for me. I don't think it's the thing that helps me, like, keep up with all the things I've got to do. Like, I've got a business, I'm a mom, other things, crochet.
Yeah. Queen of the hobby.
I have many hobbies. The hobbies are important. And I know at any point, like, I could be very overwhelmed. And so it's important for me to live through not being overwhelmed, to live through not being stressed, to have periods where I know I can be completely calm through any situation, in living that way on purpose with the business behind me that's very calm and very stress-free. That allows me to just stay very chilled throughout.
Can we talk, because I think this is so inspiring for people who are really on the edge of this and on the cusp of maybe making it happen. Can we talk about ambition and then living the way you do? Because I think this is a really interesting conversation, and I know it's something that people might be grappling with, of the sense of, they might think, I'm ambitious. And I think sometimes people think you're accepting something to have something else, to take something away. And I know we're very passionate of, like, you can be ambitious and still live a beautifully curated, slow life if you want it to be slow, or, you don't have to work 60 hours, 50 hours, 40 hours, 30 hours a week to be, and still be very ambitious. Can you just talk to that to reassure people if they do identify as being ambitious in some kind of capacity?
Yeah, I mean, one of, like, the most ambitious people I know. Like, I've always been that way. Like I said, I was really academic. I've always been really academic. I always strive to do the best I can in anything that I do. It's one of the reasons I love having hundreds of hobbies, because I want to be really good at everything. And I actually have found over time that what facilitates me to be my most ambitious self and to get to the success that I actually really want, not the success that I've been told I should have or the figures that I should be aiming for, but what I'm really looking to build, the thing that has facilitated that is having a much more peaceful business and a much calmer way of living, like, day to day, whether that is in work or outside. And I think we've got into a habit of believing that ambition can only be supported by, like, intense productivity. And actually, like, the only times that I've ever felt like I couldn't achieve what I wanted to achieve were the times when I was working every single day, stressed out of my mind, balancing a million different things, and feeling like there's, at that point, there's no way I can do this. I've got to the place where I feel really happy with the success that I have because I have more space. And I think there's something in, like, acknowledging what that looks like, first of all, because it's different for everyone. but giving yourself the space to be your most ambitious self as well.
And it's such a jarring transition process, that, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
If you're in the middle of that right now, it is a weird space for people. You know, like if you're sort of like half in, half out, as you said, maybe the pricing's gone up, maybe the offers have changed, sometimes it feels like your whole world is sort of in a tumble dryer and it's kind of like spinning around, and you've got to like find strengths or threads to like hold on to, because you do kind of sometimes it can feel like you're losing everything even though you're actually gaining everything at the same time.
Yes, there is something in like getting comfortable with having the space. I don't know. There's something about the way that we live as a society, like not to go too broad,
Go there.
like, you know, but we're kind of not given the support to have space, to have free time. You know, it's just not built into who we are as people. And there is something that's uncomfortable about, God, like it took me so long to go, oh, I've got a spare day. Oh, I won't just sit down on my laptop and do some work. I'll do nothing. You know, I'll sit and read, or I'll go for a big walk with my dog. Like, I just think there is something in owning the space that you have and not feeling like you have to be productive all the time. And yeah, being ambitious comes into that because you do feel like you should be doing something all the time. But again, that's kind of when you end up getting burnt at both ends and tired all the time and not able to do that best work, especially as creatives. We have like this limited tank of creative energy that we can put out there. And if you are working all the time, it does get depleted. I've seen it not just in myself, but in basically everyone that I've worked with. And if you are a creative business owner who is ambitious, what are you going to do when your tank is empty? Like when there's nothing left to give? That's when I think you lose. We were talking before about like sustainability. Having that sustainability in your business is fueled by giving yourself the space to do incredible work, first of all, and then, you know, resting up and feeling really great as well.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. This conversation is just like, yes. Can we touch briefly on your maternity leave plans, how that all came about? Because I know that's a real topic for self-employed folks.
Yes, yeah, sure. I've worked with a lot of people on kind of building a maternity leave or like planning a maternity leave. My maternity leave plan started like as soon as I found out I was going to be a mom. Like as soon as I found out I was pregnant, I was like, okay, well, something has to happen here. And I have to acknowledge that I didn't have a traditional maternity leave. Like I know that a lot of people, and it really depends where you are, but if you think about in the UK, a sort of like 9-month to 1 year maternity leave is really normal. And I didn't have that. I had 3 months. But the 3 months was a big step at the time. Like it was giving myself 3 months away from the business was huge. I think I'd taken a month off before, but I'd had things planned in the meantime maybe. And I started planning straight away of like when that was going to be, what it was going to look like to facilitate me to not do any work in that time so I could actually have a maternity leave. So what did it look like in terms of work beforehand? Like what did I need for that time and what did I need set up for when I was coming back? Like they're the main 3 things that I was doing. So I planned in a few things to share before I went on maternity leave. I launched a new offer that helped with like the finances of having 3 months away. I also worked on trying to book in projects when I got back, which was really helpful. I had 3 of like the biggest projects I've ever worked on booked for when I got back from my maternity leave. And I also, at that time, I think was getting more seriously into mentoring and the strategy work that I do now. And so I created a program for that and launched that before I went away. There was a lot of moving pieces to facilitate me to just have this like 3-month block away. And I don't think it has to be that complicated. But it does need to be planned and it does need to be thought out. You can't just like take 3 months away on a whim. When I was on my mat leave, I didn't take any like maternity allowance or pay. I created like payment systems and like plans for the projects that I had booked in to kind of fund my maternity leave. And in hindsight, I think I probably could have had a little bit longer. But I didn't need it because when I came back to work, I was working 2 days a week and it was helped by my day of childcare, and my husband, who, you know, has flexible shift work, that sort of thing. So yeah, I think that's kind of like the the outline of that time. And it was one of the easiest portions of my journey as a mum. Like, it was so planned out and so curated to make sure everything was like going to work, that I didn't have any stress at that point, which is really important when you've got like a newborn to manage. So yeah, it was one of my like greatest achievements by far.
That is phenomenal and so inspiring for people listening, because I know that is the fear that is in so many female leaders around what are they going to do.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, it's valid. Like, there isn't a lot of support for...
It's pretty non-existent, isn't it?
Yeah, if you're self-employed, it's very tricky. And I want to empower people to be able to take that time. Like, I think we can really struggle as, you know, when you become a parent, to almost like find where you slot in to the world. Like, I remember when I had my little boy, I was in a group with like some other new mums who all had like full-time jobs. And when I went back to work after 3 months, I felt like really, really upset that they still had, you know, maybe 6 months or even longer. Like, some of them had like a year left. But when I came back into work, and when it got to the point where other people, like my maternity leave would have ended, I still had 2 or 3 days a week with my son that I could spend on, you know, whatever, like being a parent and just trying to raise my son in the best way and not having to go and work 5 days a week. And that was really important to me, that there was a balance of having what I would have had if I had a full-time job and the support to take a maternity leave, but also really using the flexibility that I had in my business to be the best mum that I could be beyond that as well.
And that impact just snowballed, I imagined, as he's got older.
Yeah. Like, I'm really upset he's going to school. Like, I think I love spending time together, and the fact that he's had so much time with me and his dad as well, like all of us as a family, is really important. And I wouldn't swap that for anything. And if we're talking about ambition, that to me is a really key element of my ambition. It's not just about how much am I making and what are the achievements. It's that I can look back and see that I've given my son something that I was never able to have as a child, and so many other people just aren't able to give.
The biggest gift. I mean, phenomenal. I feel like we need another episode already, because we've got so much more that I'm like, oh my goodness, we could go in so many ways. But this has been fantastic. I think for people hearing a really honest account of how good it gets to be, how fun and free and abundant, right?
Yeah. And I have to say, like, I do sometimes struggle with this, like, I never want it to come across as this toxic positivity, like, oh, you get to do things the way you want to. Like, it comes with strategy, it comes with planning, it comes with intention and leadership. Like we were saying before, there are lots of moving pieces and there is a process there, but it is really truly possible. Like, I'm not just floating around and saying, yeah, you can do it, it's fine. Like, it is really possible to build in things that mean you can enjoy your life much more with like your business supporting you, instead of feeling like you have to work to live and work miserably. Like, there's a different way to live.
Absolutely. I feel like we are both such walking examples of that. But I also think what you said there about the strategy is what underpins it all. Like, you are an incredibly strategic businesswoman, and you almost use strategy to fuel and carve out freedom for yourself in a way that is phenomenally inspiring for people.
Yeah.
Can we finish with some quick fire questions?
Yes,
is that
please,
okay?
Yeah.
Okay. What does being a CEO mean to you, and has that changed over time?
Being a CEO means that I get to make all of the decisions, and I get to create whatever business or life looks like for me in a way that I just could never imagine in any other walk of life.
Yeah, that's powerful. Such a powerful definition, especially if anyone's like, I don't feel like a CEO, I don't know if I am a CEO. I'm hoping that this series is really showing people like CEOs are everywhere, and we're like, really, we don't look all the same. We don't all do the same things.
We don't look the same.
Don't look the same. If I could gift you with 2 more hours every week, just randomly, what are you using that 2 hours for?
Ooh. Can I add a new hobby in?
I was just about to say, you are definitely going down the hobby route.
Definitely a new hobby. Maybe embroidery is the next one.
Love that. I can just imagine that. It's just like the next piece.
Yes.
I love it. And what do you have, a resource or a person or maybe a book or something that shifted or impacted how you lead as a business owner?
I don't have a specific answer in terms of like a book or any specific resource, but I once read a self-help book that a lot of people were talking about was like game changing. This is the best thing ever. It's going to make your business so much better, more successful, whatever it would be. And I read it and thought it was absolute crap. And from then, I have been really mindful of taking in the information and picking and choosing what's going to work and what doesn't work. And I think the resource is less of a specific resource, but more taking what fits and leaving behind what doesn't.
Oh, so powerful. I feel like that is just motto for life.
Yeah.
Final question. If you could leave one message to every ambitious woman in business, what would that message be?
I really want everyone to know that you can be entirely yourself in your business and you never have to fit a different mold, be a certain type of way, have a certain type of personality. You can be entirely yourself and still get to the exact vision of your business that you want.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Where can people connect with you and your work and maybe reach out? Because I'm sure now people are like, wow, this woman is really cool.
Yeah, that would be great. So I'm mostly on Instagram at Gatto Creative Mentor. I also find my design account at Gatto Web, which is a bit less active at the moment. But and my website is mentor.gattoweb.com.
Perfect. Amazing. Kat, thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom on the Honest Business podcast today.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.